When 71-year-old Ruth Anderson decided to plant tomatoes in her backyard, she expected dirt, maybe some rocks, perhaps a few earthworms. What she didn't expect was for her shovel to strike metal 3 feet down. And she definitely didn't expect that metal to be part of a bronze chest containing artifacts that would force historians to completely rewrite what we know about pre-Columbian America. What Ruth found in her garden in suburban Ohio didn't just challenge academic consensus. It proved that ancient civilizations reached North America centuries before we ever imagined. Stay until the end, because what archaeologists pulled from Ruth's backyard is still causing heated debates in universities around the world. Ruth Anderson had lived in the same house in Chillicothe, Ohio for 43 years. She and her late husband bought it in 1980, a modest 2-bedroom ranch with a decent-sized backyard. Her husband had maintained a small vegetable garden there for decades, growing tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers every summer. After he passed away 2 years ago, Ruth let the garden go. The weeds took over, the soil hardened, and the plot became an eyesore. But this spring, something changed. Ruth woke up one morning and decided she missed fresh tomatoes. She missed the ritual of watering, weeding, watching things grow. So she went to the hardware store, bought seeds, a new shovel, and some fertilizer. She was going to bring that garden back to life. The first day of digging was harder than she remembered. The soil had compacted over 2 years of neglect. Ruth worked slowly, turning over shovelful after shovelful of dark earth. She was about 3 feet into preparing the bed when her shovel hit something solid with a metallic clang that sent vibrations up through the handle. Ruth assumed it was a rock, or maybe an old pipe. She dug around the obstruction, clearing away soil to get a better look. That's when she saw it. Not a rock, not a pipe, metal. Worked metal, bronze, green with age, formed into what looked like the corner of a box or chest. Her heart started beating faster. Ruth had watched enough treasure hunting shows to know this was unusual. She carefully cleared more soil away, working with her hands now instead of the shovel. The object was definitely a chest, roughly 2 feet long, 18 inches wide, and a foot deep. It was sealed, with no visible hinges or locks, just smooth bronze plates fitted together with incredible precision. Ruth sat back on her heels, staring at it. Should she call someone? Should she open it? She decided to call her nephew, Michael, who taught history at the local community college. If anyone would know what to do, it would be him. Michael arrived within an hour, bringing his colleague, Dr. Sarah Chen, an archaeologist who specialized in Native American history. When they saw the chest, still half buried in Ruth's garden, both of them went pale. "Mrs. Anderson," Dr. Chen said quietly, "don't touch it anymore. This needs to be documented properly." Over the next 3 days, Ruth's backyard was transformed into an archaeological dig site. Dr. Chen brought in a team from Ohio State University. They set up a grid, brought in ground-penetrating radar, and carefully excavated the chest using proper archaeological techniques. Ruth watched from her back porch, sipping tea, wondering what on earth she'd stumbled into. When they finally lifted the chest from the ground, the entire team fell silent. It weighed over 200 pounds. The bronze was worked in a style none of them recognized. There were symbols etched into the surface, intricate patterns that looked like writing but in no alphabet any of them had ever seen. Dr. Chen made the decision to transport the chest to the university lab before opening it. They needed controlled conditions, proper documentation, and experts who could analyze whatever was inside. Ruth was invited to be present when they opened it. After all, it was her discovery. If you're as fascinated by this discovery as we are, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We bring you stories of incredible discoveries that challenge what we think we know about history. Your support helps us share these important finds with the world. 2 weeks later, Ruth sat in a university laboratory, surrounded by archaeologists, historians, metallurgists, and linguists. The bronze chest sat on an examination table under bright lights. Cameras were positioned to record everything. Dr. Chen had decided to use a specialized laser to carefully separate the sealed plates without damaging whatever was inside. The process took 3 hours. Slowly, carefully, the seal was broken. When they finally lifted the top plate away, Everyone in the room gasped. Inside the chest, perfectly preserved by the airtight seal and the properties of the bronze, were objects that shouldn't exist. Not in Ohio, not in North America, not from any civilization that was supposed to have been here. There were scrolls made of a material that looked like treated leather, but wasn't quite leather. There were coins, dozens of them, stamped with symbols and faces that looked vaguely Mediterranean, but not quite Greek, not quite Roman. There were tools, small instruments made of bronze and what appeared to be steel, forged with a sophistication that shouldn't have existed in pre-Columbian America. And there was a map, drawn on a thin sheet of hammered copper, showing coastlines and rivers and marked locations. Dr. Chen picked up one of the scrolls with gloved hands. She carefully unrolled it. The material was flexible, undamaged by time. The writing on it was dense, in that same unknown script from the chest's exterior. She took photographs and immediately sent them to colleagues around the world. The response was overwhelming. Within days, linguists from 5 countries were working on deciphering the script, and what they found was shocking. The writing was a previously unknown alphabet, but the language underneath was a dialect of Phoenician. Ancient Phoenician, from approximately 800 BCE. The Phoenicians were legendary sailors and traders from the Mediterranean, based in what is now Lebanon. History recorded that they'd sailed around Africa and possibly reached the Azores. But North America? That was considered impossible. There was no evidence, no proof. Until now. Over the next 6 months, the contents of Ruth's chest were analyzed by experts from around the world. Carbon dating confirmed the materials were genuinely ancient, dating between 850 and 750 BCE. The metal composition of the bronze matched samples from Phoenician sites in the Mediterranean. The coins bore the symbols of Carthage, the great Phoenician city-state. But the map was the most astounding discovery. It showed the eastern coast of North America with remarkable accuracy. The Chesapeake Bay, the Delaware River, Lake Erie, and marked on the map, at a location that corresponded almost exactly to Chillicothe, Ohio, was a symbol that the linguists translated as trading post or settlement. The scrolls, once fully translated, told an incredible story. They were the records of a Phoenician expedition led by a captain named Hanno the Navigator, different from the famous Hanno who circumnavigated Africa. This Hanno had been commissioned by the Carthaginian Senate to explore the Western Ocean, to find new sources of copper and tin for bronze making. The records described a journey that took 3 years. They'd sailed west, following the currents, and made landfall on what they called the Endless Coast. They'd explored inland, following rivers, and discovered deposits of copper near the Great Lake, Lake Erie. They'd established a small trading post, intending to return with more ships to exploit the copper deposits. But something went wrong. The records spoke of conflict with the native peoples, of disease, of a harsh winter that killed half their men. The survivors buried their most precious possessions, this chest with their records and tools, intending to return one day. They never did. The chest sat buried in what would eventually become Ruth Anderson's backyard for 2,800 years. The archaeological team expanded their search of Ruth's property and the surrounding area. Using ground-penetrating radar, they found the remains of structures, foundation stones arranged in a pattern consistent with Phoenician architecture. They found more artifacts, pottery shards with Phoenician designs, tools, even the remains of a small boat buried in what had once been a creek bed. The discovery sent shockwaves through the academic world. Conferences were held, papers were published, heated debates raged about the implications. If the Phoenicians reached America 2,800 years ago, what else didn't we know about ancient maritime capabilities? How many other expeditions might there have been? What impact did these visitors have on the native populations? This story gets even more incredible. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because the implications of Ruth's discovery are still unfolding and changing how we understand ancient history. The Native American tribes in Ohio were brought into the research. Elders from the Shawnee and Miami tribes examined the findings, and something remarkable emerged. They had oral histories, stories passed down for generations, about the Copper people. Strangers who came from the east in great boats, who traded with the ancestors, who built strange houses of stone. These stories had been dismissed as myths. Now they were being reconsidered as potential historical records. Ruth's discovery forced a complete reassessment of pre-Columbian contact theories. Within a year, archaeologists began re-examining other anomalous finds that had been dismissed or ignored. A stone inscription in New Mexico that had Phoenician characteristics. Unusual bronze artifacts found in Tennessee. Each one was being looked at with fresh eyes. The academic establishment was divided. Traditional scholars argued for caution, pointing out that one find, however spectacular, didn't overturn decades of consensus. But younger researchers embraced the discovery, arguing that it proved ancient peoples were far more capable and adventurous than we'd given them credit for. As for Ruth, she became an unlikely celebrity. She was invited to give talks, appeared in documentaries, and was interviewed by news outlets around the world. The modest woman who just wanted to plant tomatoes had inadvertently rewritten history books. The bronze chest and its contents are now displayed at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., in a special exhibition titled The Chillicothe Hoard, Phoenicians in America. Millions of people have come to see it. Ruth attended the opening and stood in front of the chest she'd found, still hardly believing it was real. Ohio State University established the Anderson Chair of Ancient Maritime Studies, funded by donations that poured in after the discovery. Dr. Chen was appointed as the first chairholder. The department focuses on researching ancient transoceanic contact and challenging assumptions about what ancient peoples could accomplish. Ruth's house became a protected archaeological site. She still lives there, but her backyard is now maintained by the university. They've excavated the entire property and found evidence of at least 3 structures from the Phoenician settlement. There's talk of building a museum on the adjacent lot. The Native American tribes worked with researchers to create a comprehensive exhibition about the Copper people, blending archaeological findings with oral histories. It's become a powerful example of how indigenous knowledge and Western archaeology can work together to reveal deeper truths about history. Today, Ruth is 73 years old. She never did get to plant those tomatoes, but she doesn't mind. She says finding the chest was worth giving up her garden. She keeps a replica of one of the Phoenician coins on her mantelpiece, a reminder that history is always closer than we think, sometimes literally buried in our own backyards. Textbooks are being revised. High school curricula are being updated to include the Chillicothe discovery. The story of Hanno the Navigator and his expedition to America is now taught alongside Columbus and the Vikings. A reminder that the story of human exploration is far older and more complex than we ever imagined. Ruth still gets letters from people around the world, thanking her for not just covering the metal back up and forgetting about it, because she called her nephew, because she let the archaeologists do their work properly. We now know something remarkable about our past. I was just planting a garden, Ruth says with a smile, but I guess I uncovered history instead. If Ruth's discovery amazed you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share this with anyone who loves history, archaeology, or stories about ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries. Leave a comment below telling us what you think. What other ancient civilizations might have reached the Americas? Thank you for watching, and remember that history isn't just in textbooks and museums. Sometimes it's 3 feet under your backyard, waiting for someone with a shovel and curiosity to bring it back to light. Sometimes, the most important discoveries are made by people who are just trying to plant tomatoes.